Welcome back to another episode of Drilling Deeper. It's episode 25, and we're going to be talking about MINExpo International today. I'm Kevin Yanik, Editor-in-Chief of Pit & Quarry. Again with me, Managing Editor of Pit & Quarry, Jack Kopanski. Jack, how's it going?
As always, Kevin, going good. The show's wrapping up here in Vegas. Looking forward to recapping what we saw.
Yeah, day 3 here, a lot of positive sentiment on the show floor. I mean, I think everybody on the Pit & Quarry staff got into all 3 halls, the West, Central, and North, and I think my expectations for this show, Jack, were a little different than the outcome that we saw here. I think coming off the 2021 MINExpo, I wasn't sure fully what to expect. I thought attendance would be a little up over 21, but still down over, peak MINExpo years. But a lot of energy here, a lot of show traffic in all 3 halls, even here on the last day. And we're dropping this on October 8th if you're out there listening, but this is the last day of MINExpo. And the traffic was pretty steady on day 3 into the afternoon hours. And overall, I didn't hear any negativity coming out of the show. I think there's a lot of reinforcement that there's some exciting things going on with technology. You and I were getting in different booths here in Las Vegas, and I'm energized with what I saw and what I heard, and I think the business environment is conducive for just more activity. So I think all in all, it was a positive show experience for Pit & Quarry here.
Yeah, I'd agree 100%. I think, like you said, coming into this, the expectations I think are normally a little different for a show like this as opposed to like an Ag One or a ConExpo. But yeah, like you said, the overall sentiment in going to booth to booth and talking to manufacturers and talking to those exhibiting and just sort of saying, hey, how's the show going so far? A lot of optimism, a lot of positivity. A couple noted maybe a little bit of a lull at the start of the 3rd day, which 3 nights in Vegas will do that to you by the 3rd day of the show. But no, other than that, yeah, just it sounded like, one of the things that stuck out to me in talking with people at booths, it sounded like, a lot of people were sort of ready to buy and were ready to do so now, signing IPOs and whatnot. And yeah, it did sound like a great turnout. It certainly seemed, just with how busy the halls and lobby was, that it was, a lot busier, a lot more people than 2021, and obviously you'd hope so given all the factors that were at play in 21. But yeah, overall, I think this show definitely blew my expectations out of the water. Seems like a roaring success, and yeah, hopefully it's a sign of the health of the industry and what we're going to see the last few months of the year and into 2025.
Well, we brought in a variety of industry leaders to the booth here at MINExpo to talk about their own show experience. In future episodes of Drilling Deeper, we're going to share their sentiments on equipment and technology, the state of the industry, as we get closer toward the end of the year. But this episode today is very much focused on MINExpo and the experiences that people, producers, manufacturers, technology providers had here in Las Vegas. And Jack, let's hear from several of them right now. We've got Christian Kurasek from Pronto here in the MINExpo booth. Christian, thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you mentioned this is your second MINExpo. I'm guessing the first one was the last version in 2021, COVID-altered one.
Yep.
This has been a better experience, I would imagine?
It's blown away all of our expectations. We're pretty lucky. Komatsu announced just on Monday that they're introducing the latest 605 model, the Dash 10. It's the upgrade from the Dash 8. They're introducing that to the North American market. There is one at our booth, and so that's been an amazing draw. We've got our autonomous haulage system installed in that truck, and so even if folks don't come in knowing exactly what Pronto does, they take pictures in front of Komatsu's latest edition, and then they find out it drives itself, and they get even more excited. So it's just been overwhelming. We've got probably 10 people here, and we've just been nonstop since the show started, so it's been great.
We're an aggregates publication serving crushed stone, sand, and gravel producers. It surprised me a little bit how many have been on the show floor here. It's traditionally a mining show. I mean, there's opportunities for aggregates. Pronto's venturing into this space, the aggregates niche. Are you seeing aggregate producers over in the West Hall where you're at? And
yeah.
I guess who are the typical producers that are coming by? Like, what are the nature of their businesses?
It's a good question. We have seen a lot of aggregates producers. We talked to all of the big ones. This show's been a great opportunity to meet a lot of the folks who aren't part of the top 10 or 20 in the world. So seeing a lot of smaller operations, which is fantastic. We're also seeing a lot of interest from the mining industry. We started in quarries partly strategically, partly out of necessity, proving that the technology works, it's safe, it can match the productivity of humans. If we can make the economics and the technology work on the smallest trucks and the smallest operations with tight margins, then our theory was we're going to have an amazing system when we start scaling up to the mining industry. So that's certainly, we're starting to do that. So we're also getting a lot of interest from mining companies. So we're getting visitors from small quarries to the biggest mining companies in the world.
Well, we're back at the MINExpo show with Bibhrajit Halder, CEO and founder of SafeAI. Bibhrajit, thanks for making your way over to the North Hall here.
Absolutely. You and me been talking for a while. It's really love to see you in person. And this is a great booth. I couldn't be more happier.
Appreciate your presence. Yeah, I mean, we did a story with you, did a Q&A earlier in the year talking about autonomous hauling, and that's a running theme of this show, just as digitalization, sustainability, electrification, and autonomy. I mean, it's very much here to stay, and it seems like the snowball's really starting to pick up some steam there. What are you seeing here? What are you hearing as we're here at the big international mining show that's occurring every 4 years related to autonomous hauling, Bibhrajit, and what's your MINExpo experience been like overall?
Absolutely. So we have a booth, and a part of the SafeAI, we have a booth here. And you're right. I mean, the technology discussion happening here is just amazing. You talked about electrification, autonomy, digitalization, all of that. And I think for autonomy, I will talk about more detail. But overall, one of the great things at this show, meeting so many people all over the world, people are here. And you kind of going from one meeting to another meeting, and you meet them in the middle, and that's just amazing. And I think even meeting you here, right? We have been talking, we haven't met in person. So I think this is great, and the amount of energy, the technology is just, very much energy is good. So we can talk more about autonomy, but amazing experience in MINExpo.
We are joined by Jim Chamberlain, Regional Sales Manager with Philippi-Hagenbuch, Phil for short.
Yep.
Jim, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely, Jack. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Obviously here on the show floor of MINExpo, a lot of buzz. Seems like a lot of people have been saying it's a pretty well-attended show. Pretty strong showing coming off of 2021. Obviously a lot of factors at play with that show. Just, tell me a little bit about what's your experience in MINExpo 2024 been like so far?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's been great. I think the attendance has been fantastic. We've been getting a ton of activity and momentum through the booth. So a lot of people. In past years, sometimes it's a little bit more vendor, but we're getting a lot of people interested in equipment, and it's good to just reconnect with a lot of our customers. But it's been a great show. We got a lot of good leads, so it's been great.
Historically, Phil's normally had a pretty big presence at MINExpo in the past before, correct?
Correct. Yeah. We've been in business for 55 years, and we've been at MINExpo since then. So yeah, we have. For us personally, a great location at the premier mining show in the world. So we've had a great presence here, and it's good to continue that.
Yeah. So obviously Phil's sort of has its toes in a lot of mining in many different aspects, and Pit and Quarry is a bit more aggregate centric. But in your view, with this being such sort of a wide-reaching show, why should aggregate producers consider attending MINExpo, for a show that maybe on the surface might not seem to apply to them?
Yeah. And that makes sense. It's a mining show, and I would say the biggest reason is a lot of the producers, a lot of the vendors, a lot of the suppliers, they go across industries. And I mean, for us, for example, we do everything from small articulated trucks up to largest mining trucks. And I'll say that's similar. We've had aggregate producers come up to our booth and talk to us, some current customers and some new customers, new potential customers. If people from the aggregate industry attend, they won't be alone, and I think they would find a lot of value in attending this as well.
All right, we are now joined by Garry Baldwin, Business Development Manager for Canada at Regal Rexnord. Gary, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
How you doing today?
Doing good.
Excellent. Obviously on the show here, on the show floor here, MINExpo 2024. But can you talk a little bit about why maybe this is a valuable show for aggregate producers to attend?
I think it's valuable because if you look at the whole thing, if it be mining or aggregate, I think both one and the same. Just one's a bigger version of it, let's say. That being said, we still have some aggregate customers who are larger than some of our mining customers. So bigger equipment, some of the aggregate people today are building bigger facilities, so there's more more involvement, I think, to turn an aggregate pit into more of a mining project rather than, and I think we're seeing a lot more of that, especially in Canada. And I think a big part of that's probably the environment. The smaller pits people are getting rid of and just making one, or in some cases the large pit is becoming a hassle to the environment, so they're scattering it out and making it smaller. But I think we're seeing bigger equipment going into the aggregate industry than we've seen in the past.
Well, here at MINExpo, day 2, we've got Kirby Cline from Masaba in the booth. Kirby, how's it going today?
Today is a good day. We're standing upright.
Well, we appreciate you making the venture over here from Central Hall. You're the far end of Central Hall. We're at the far end of the North Hall here, so you probably got your steps in getting over here. But you know, we're partway into day 2 here. Got another day and a half of the show to go. But what's your experience been like so far? What have you seen?
So the show in general, I can see that there's a lot more people here than there was 4 years ago. It's good to see that kind of excitement and activity. There's the people that come to MINExpo are good quality lead generation people. You get a lead, it's a good lead. So we do appreciate this show for that reason.
Are you seeing more executive level types of this show, or is it more operationally oriented people that are coming by, or a mix of both even?
I think in the past it was more executive. This year I'm seeing more operational side.
Okay. How about, it's a mining show, obviously MINExpo International, but we've seen more aggregate producers at this show than I can remember at a MINExpo in recent years. Are you seeing aggregate producers?
We
present?
are, and even a lot of my dealers are showing up. So, which that doesn't always happen in the past.
Sure.
Which means their customers are here.
We're back in the Pit and Quarry booth here at MINExpo International. It's winding down on day 3, and we've got Karen Thompson from Boecker Niagara. She's the president of North America. Karen, how's it going here at the show in Vegas?
It was excellent. I would say probably one of the best MINExpos that I've remembered attending. So great quality of visitors. Really, a lot of people from the aggregate industry at a MINExpo, which was really interesting to see how heavily populated it was with visitors really from all industries. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, kind of a resurgence coming off the last one in 21 that was COVID impacted, but I don't remember seeing that in the past too. Do you feel like maybe this is a missed opportunity to a degree for agri producers? Should they be here? Should they know more about MINExpo? Because obviously everybody knows about ConExpo, and there's been a lot of positive momentum for Ag One, a good aggregates focused show. But it seems like there's plenty of opportunities to visit with vendors and learn things and get educated at MINExpo as well.
A lot, yeah. And I mean, I think that especially a lot of the big aggregate players these days, you're looking at larger machines. You're looking really more at mining size equipment, and I think that's what we're finding is the crossover is happening because people want, more deck surface, heavier duty equipment, or something that really has to perform well. So I think there is a little bit of that shift in looking at what is mining doing as an aggregate player.
How about the nature of the people here, Karen, if you want to comment on that? But I've been hearing, kind of a mix of reports from exhibitors saying, yeah, there were a lot of executive level types here that were in the booth trying to get a handle on where they want to go in the next 3 or 4 years, and at the same time there were some operations people here. Do you have a sense, did you see a mix? Did you see more of one kind versus another coming by the booth?
Yeah, I mean, we did have a lot of operations, a lot of reliability people here, which was always great. I mean, we would find that people would come, they'd come back with maybe somebody that was more of the decision maker in the company. So it did seem to be a mix. I mean, we felt that it was a really good mix because you've got the people who really understand, for example, the benefits of improvements on equipment that could offer better maintenance and that kind of thing. So you really are getting people who understand, not just in a purchasing position, but who would be using it, who understand the benefits, and then bringing everybody to the table that needs to make the decisions. So we found it a very, very good mix, very positive.
All right, and we're joined now by Stephane Giroudon, sales manager at Montabert. Stephane, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we're here, day 3 of MINExpo, wrapping things up. Still a lot of buzz and excitement on the trade floor. Now that the show's almost at an end, Stephane, just how has MINExpo treated you guys at Montabert?
Well, it's been great for us, and I've been in this industry for over 20 years. I've attended a few MINExpo myself. I believe that was one of the largest one I've seen, so very excited about it. We had a lot of traffic, a lot of good exchange with our customers and new prospects. It's been great so far, so good.
Excellent. MINExpo, obviously, you're seeing a lot of large equipment for a lot of the mining that goes on, and us, being sort of focused on the aggregates realm. We're just one small little rock in that mining world. So, but with all that MINExpo has to offer, and with all that Montabert has to offer, just why is MINExpo a show that aggregate producers should consider looking into, even though it's maybe not immediately evident?
Well, I think to me, first of all, for aggregates producers and such, the networking side of things, I think it's key to meet other peers, and other people from their industry or specific markets. And also, of course, to look at the latest innovations and future, products and solutions. So I think that's the key here, meeting new folks and new products.
Yeah, you talk about some of those latest innovations. Has there been anything you've seen on the show floor that's kind of stuck out to you?
Well, I think everybody can recognize. First of all, electrification is the number one thing going on right now around the world, and it's definitely something in the mining world that's been around for a long time. But for sure, it's getting more and more. I would say. I don't know what to say, but it's getting more predominant in the mining, and it's now also to the aggregate side of things. So, also I think automation is one thing that we're really starting to embrace. Again, it's coming from the underground mining world and stepping out to the surface mining aggregates as well. So those are the biggest thing I've seen this week. Yeah.
Well, thanks to everybody who joined us here in the booth at MINExpo to talk about their show experience. Again, Jack, a lot of aggregate producers were here. I know it's not an aggregate-specific show. It's MINExpo, and there's a lot of different segments to mining and what that means. But we heard from some of our guests that they saw a lot of aggregate producers coming to their booth. We had some aggregate producers in our booth here as well. And this is my fourth MINExpo, and I don't necessarily remember that being the case where there were many aggregate producers, but in talking to people like Karen Thompson at Boecker Niagara, I mean, this is an opportunity. This show, if you can't make it to ConExpo or you're looking to get to another big show and exploring equipment and technology, there's a lot of providers here, OEMs, service providers, technology providers, that you can engage, all in one place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think and I think you hit the nail on the head there. We were hearing from a lot of exhibitors that they were seeing a lot of aggregate producer traffic, which, like you said, not necessarily what we expected. I know we ran into a few as well. And again, you mentioned some of the folks we talked to, they kind of hit on why this show is still a valuable one for aggregate producers, even though it is very mining focused, and obviously aggregates, like you mentioned, is kind of a niche little part of that very big world. And I think one of the big trends that stuck out, and I know we're going to get into some equipment and technology trends in future episodes, but I think for me one of the biggest trends I saw going booth to booth, and I don't know if you saw the same thing, obviously sustainability. That's been sort of the hot button issue for years now, but it really seemed like there's been a big emphasis, or there is currently a big emphasis from manufacturers, from these OEMs, to say, let the miners mine. Let them do what they do best. Let them do what they know. They don't need to know the inner workings of a pump, of a breaker, of XYZ piece of equipment. And they're using predictive technology to be proactive and be able to say, we want to be the one calling our customer saying, hey, this is about to go bad. We're going to come out tomorrow and replace it, so that you'll have 2 hours of downtime tomorrow instead of 2 days of downtime because it busts, and then we got to try to get someone out there. So just a lot of emphasis of saying, let these guys do what they do best. We're going to do what we do best. We want to keep our operators running. We want to keep them up because that makes them money. That makes us money. Everyone's happy, and that just seems like sort of a no-brainer approach, but it seemed to be a very, very big emphasis at the show this year.
Yeah, a lot of emphasis, like you said, Jack, on sustainability. I think digital technology, it's going forward. I mean, this show, just like ConExpo is every 3 years, Jack, I mean, it's kind of an inflection point on where we are as an industry with with technology and the adoption of it. I was talking with an autonomous haulage system provider earlier today, and he was sharing, and we're going to hear from that person in a future episode of Drilling Deeper as well, but sharing that he's expecting production of autonomous haulers for aggregates to be online in 2025. I mean, that's news to me. I mean, so it's kind of crazy when you bring all this together and see where we are and how far we've come, from like the last MINExpo 4 years ago. You start to get a taste of, what's possible at this show, and we're really getting to a point where probably in our lifetimes, Jack, we're going to see mine sites, pits, and quarries operate, without a single individual needing to go in them, other than to maybe, maintain the equipment. Because like you're talking about with sensors and other hardware that can be equipped to the equipment, extracting data out of it, analyzing that. The nature of the jobs is changing because people are, rather than being out front in the future, they're going to be more behind the scenes, more safety. So there's a lot transpiring right now. It's an exciting time for the industry. It's a big time for change for aggregates and for mining overall. And I think for us, again, we're an aggregates-focused publication. It's a niche of greater mining. And when you come to MINExpo, I think it kind of gives you a view of what aggregates is going to look like 5, 10, 20 years from now, because it seems like a lot of the tech starts with the bigger equipment, and it's trickling down into aggregates. And I remember when I started my career, some of the cutting edge concepts that we were talking about, like autonomous haulers, it seems so far out there, or like remote control loaders, and it's practically real world at this point. And, I'm talking about a 10-year period. Yeah. So to think where we're going to go in another 10 years or, just another 20 years, another generation, it's exciting. And I don't think we fully know what the future is going to hold, but it's exciting for our industry.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about that trickle down, and that's something we've obviously covered a lot in both the magazine and on this podcast, is, like you mentioned, the autonomous hauling aspect. And the thought of that possibly being a reality in 25, like you said, I definitely didn't have that in my cards, because you talk to so many of the companies that are using this autonomous technology in their haul trucks, and the problem that you hear, the problem that we've heard so much, is that scaling it down to the size of the trucks that you use in aggregates has really been the issue. You can get it down to about, at least what we've seen, get it down to about, trucks rated for about 100 tons and above. But getting it down to some of the smaller sizes that are using aggregates has seemed to be the issue. So if we're looking at, 2025, the coming 15 months, that happening, that would be a huge step. And just to continue on with automation, another thing that I was hearing a lot about is ways companies are looking to use automation or use different types of technology, not necessarily to replace human workers in mines and in quarries, but as a way to kind of supplement the workers that they do have. Because obviously, workforce has been an issue as long as I've been on pit and quarry, and well before that. So, people are finding ways to do more with less, not only with less equipment, but also with fewer people. I don't, the general sentiment of this is never going to be an industry where you can fully do away with people. You even said, so you can get down to pretty much nobody, but you're still going to need someone to go in there and either push the button, either clear something out, make sure something's going right. But it definitely is. The industry is definitely adapting to this workforce challenge in a way, and saying if we can do what we're doing, and not need to fill these 2, 3, 4 plus positions that we're looking for and having a hard time doing now, then it's a win-win.
Yeah. Another takeaway I had from the show here this week at MINExpo, it just kind of knew it was there all along, but it was just reinforced through some discussions this week. But we've seen the change in the evolution of equipment manufacturers too, whereas, you look back 30, 40 years ago, even 15, 20 years ago, and their expertise really was on making good equipment. I mean, that's what their core competency was. And, if you think about it, in the last 5 or 10 years, from CAT to Komatsu, and, I had a conversation with Epiroc on the show floor this week, and, a variety of other companies, it seems like everyone's, these big equipment manufacturing companies are acquiring technology leaders. I know we see a lot of press come across our email inboxes, Jack, and it seems like maybe I take for granted, those in some cases. It seems like the Komatsus and the CATs, they're constantly acquiring people. But when you think about what that's added up to over the last 5 or 10 years, they're not just an equipment manufacturing company, but they're a technology company. Mm-hmm. They've brought in the people and the resources who know how to connect the equipment and make better use of it. So that's been, and we had somebody in the booth here on the podcast talking too just about how that's been a tremendous change. You know, probably one of the greater changes in equipment manufacturing in you know, the last 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, if you want more MINExpo content, we're probably going to be unpacking some in future episodes of Drilling Deeper. You can also keep tabs on our write-ups at pitandquarry.com/MINExpo. Likely in the coming weeks, we're going to have a little bit more from you from Jack's interviews with some industry economists. Jack, what can we expect to hear from Richard Branch and others?
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, we dropped part one of that conversation where Richard Branch with Dodge Construction Network, Zach Fritz with the Associated Builders and Contractors, and Ken Simonson with the Associated General Contractors of America. They kind of looked at, you know, the state of the workforce, what's been going on with interest rates and inflation. And it was funny, when we recorded, it was just a couple of hours before the Fed cut rates by
half a point, right?
By half a point. So, you know, that was definitely a big development. And so this next interview, or this next episode coming out in a couple weeks, is going to focus more on, you know, looking at the different construction sectors, kind of taking a closer look at what's going on in each of them, looking at non-residential, residential, breaking that down between single and multifamily, and then also non-building, looking at what's going on in infrastructure, you know, how funds from the IIJA are being spent. A lot of good insight, and sort of a look ahead to 2025 as well, and how those sectors and segments might fare. So I always enjoy getting a chance to talk to economists, because, you know, they always make me feel very smart for about the first 30 minutes after I talk with them. So yeah, definitely be sure to check that out here in a couple of weeks. Part 2 of my interviews with Ken Simonson, Richard Branch, and Zach Fritz.
Well, that'll do it for this episode of Drilling Deeper. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See you.